the question. Third thing, we read with a pencil. I really wish we would read with a pencil, but I still think we read with pens and stylus and everything else. If you go back to the first strong work that I could find on annotation, it's 1940. Mortimer Adler, How to Read a Book. It is a fantastic piece about teaching annotation skills. Now, I assume that none of you were teachers in 1940 when this book came out. Nope, no hands. Okay, so we weren't teachers in 1940, and I think we lost this. I think we forgot this. And I would be willing to bet, for those of you, if I could go find your personal libraries, the professional books you read, I would see writing in your books. We all know that you engage in another way when you write on the text. We underline, we highlight, we write margin notes. We do that all the time. And I think we have forgotten to teach our students that. I feel really bad about that. I write in all of my books. I write in journal articles. I write on everything, because that's how I remember it. And in my career, I have never thought to teach students annotation until the last year and a half. And I feel bad about that, because I know for me, annotation works really well. And I just never thought that I should have my students do it, mostly because we have textbooks and they can't write in them. That's most of it. And I know that annotation, reading with a pencil, causes a lot of problems, especially for administrators, because they don't like the photocopy bill. You know that, right? The photocopy costs go up. So promise me, if you start doing annotation with primary source documents, that you stop photocopying shut-up sheets. The dumb worksheets, right? Photocopy primary source documents and stop copying all the dumb worksheets. And then we'll balance out the photocopy bill. And then we can write on all the papers we want. Oh, there you go. So, in our work in the last year and a half, I started thinking about, this is the first time I've really ever thought about this, how did I start learning annotation skills? How'd that happen for me? And I really started thinking about it because I cannot remember in elementary school, middle school, or high school ever writing on a piece of text. I cannot remember a single time in school. But I remember very clearly writing on a text in my first year at San Diego State as an undergraduate. And here's what I remember. Now, I haven't thought about this in a long time, but here's what I remember. My college roommate and I had one class together, abnormal psychology. He was passing, I was not. So we were studying, which I don't know that actually was studying, and he would take a ruler in this big, thick abnormal psychology book. He would take a ruler and he would run the ruler down the page. He had a pen in his hand, and every once in a while he would underline and he would write a note. And he'd drag the ruler down the page as he studied and read. Me, I'm just kind of reading along. So about halfway through the semester, because I'm failing, I decide, I'm going to do that. And it slowed my reading down, and I started passing abnormal psychology. The next semester, I went to the bookstore to buy used books. Not because I'm cheap, although I am. Not because I'm cheap. I would go to the used books section of San Diego State's bookstore, and I would do the little Goldilocks thing with the used book, and you'd pick them up and you'd flip the book. Hey, this person didn't write anything in this book. This person didn't even read this book, right? Then I pick up this one. Uh-oh, this person's highlighter blew up on this book, right? Look, this one's just right. That's the one for me. And I recognize now, I didn't recognize it then, that because I bought used books with previous highlighting and underlining in them, I was having a conversation with the author and the previous reader. I recognize that now. Because I know that there were times where I disagreed with the underlining or the margin note. I'd scratch it out. And I'd underline the part I liked. Or I'd write my own margin note. I recognize that now. That's how I became successful in college. Because I essentially taught myself how to do this. And again, I'm embarrassed that in all these years, I've never taught students to do this, even though I recognize that it's a huge part of my success. So we've been working on this for about a year and a half now, getting kids to do annotations on text. It's yes, the photocopy problem, and yes, the copyright problem. So we don't want to violate copyright, so we have to think about what's fair use and what's public domain. For those of you who work in secondary schools, there's a Gutenberg project. It's a website that has collected texts that are in the public domain for free. Huge searchable database that's awesome for us. It's got science texts and social studies texts and literature and poetry. Awesome project for us to have access to free text that kids can write on. If you don't know this, Robert Frost stuff went in the public domain last November. Do you all know that? Here's my prediction. If I know that, I suspect most of the test makers know that. If I were on the test generation side of this, and this is the first year we didn't have to pay permissions for Robert Frost poems, you'd see them all over middle school and high school. Maybe not the most obvious road not taken, but a lot of them, because there's no fee now. Now, if you want to save money on the test generation side, and we haven't tested Robert Frost in a while, so those of you now are like, okay, high school exit exam is in 9 days, so we have to run back and teach Robert Frost really fast. CSTs are a while off, so you have some time. We're going to get kids to write on the text. We have to not just have them highlight everything. We need to teach them a system of annotation. If you want to do Google Books and you go on Google Books, you can find Mortimer Adler's book, How to Read a Book, and read his annotation section. Essentially, they say, underline main ideas. Could you right now spend an entire year teaching kids to underline main ideas? Because they don't know what the main ideas are. And what do they do when you first put a pen or a pencil or a highlighter in their hand? It's like they read along with a pencil. Oh, yep, I got that too. Yep, right. So we have to teach that. We teach our students to circle confusing words and phrases. I think that's a really important message. Circle words and phrases that are confusing. Because the teacher takes a copy of the text, a little bit bigger version of it, like blown up a little bit, on a clipboard, and we walk around and we mark where, on our version, kids have circled. So we look at trends for confusing parts. Oh, look, everybody in here has marked this part of the text. I better do some modeling because they're not getting this part. It's a great formative assessment. When you have your copy of the text and you just walk around and mark, tick marks by the words that they're circling. We also have them write question marks and write questions in the margins. And as they get better and better at this, we have them write numbers in the margins when authors have enumerated points. So if the author says first, second, third, we have them write the number in the margin and write what the first point is in their own words. As they get better and better, we can add exclamation marks, we can add examples. We have to get them a habit that they take with them in terms of annotation. I don't know how you do close reading without having kids write on the text. Because the point of close reading is to have evidence that you can use in your discussions and in your writing. And students don't tend to use evidence in their writing if they have to go back and reread it again.